What happens when a conflict so entrenched in history continues to spill over into the present day? How can peace emerge when airstrikes tear through neighborhoods during one of the most sacred moments in the calendar? The world watches as Gaza endures yet another round of destruction. But will the cycle of violence ever end? Let's dive into the situation unfolding during the religious holiday of Eid al-Fitr, where lives are lost, families are displaced, and the question of peace remains elusive. Welcome to TVAI, where we bring you the latest global developments. The latest attack. During the sacred days of Eid al-Fitr, while much of the Muslim world was celebrating, Gaza became the site of yet another devastating airstrike by Israel. Over the course of 2 days, airstrikes tore through homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure, leaving over 80 Palestinians dead and thousands more injured. The death toll continues to rise as rescue operations scramble to assist the injured and search for survivors beneath the rubble. The timing of this attack during Eid, a time meant for family and celebration, adds an extra layer of heartbreak. For many in Gaza, this attack represents another chapter in a long and painful history of conflict that has not only cost them their homes but their sense of safety and normalcy. The toll on Gaza. Eyewitnesses recount scenes of chaos and destruction. Buildings crumbled to the ground, and panic spread as people fled the streets in fear of further bombardment. Hospitals that were already stretched thin due to the ongoing humanitarian crisis have now become overwhelmed with casualties, struggling to provide even the most basic care. According to local authorities, the destruction is widespread, with neighborhoods reduced to rubble and vital infrastructure, including roads and bridges, left severely damaged. The local economy, which was already on the brink of collapse, has now been set back further, with businesses destroyed and farmers losing their livelihoods. What was once a bustling area has now been left in a state of emergency. Humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian situation in Gaza, already dire before the airstrikes, has worsened drastically. With hospitals inundated with casualties and medical supplies running low, international organizations have called for urgent assistance. However, aid distribution is a significant challenge, as many roads are blocked and borders remain closed. Despite international pressure, political complications continue to hinder the effectiveness of the humanitarian response. Countries around the world have expressed their concerns, but many argue that more direct action is needed. As emergency teams struggle to access the hardest-hit areas, the international community has called for an immediate ceasefire. But so far, the warring factions have shown little inclination to back down. The role of the international community. The global community has been vocal in its condemnation of the violence, with several world leaders calling for an immediate halt to the airstrikes. The United Nations has demanded both sides engage in meaningful dialogue and seek ways to de-escalate the situation. However, the political realities on the ground make such calls increasingly difficult to actualize. For years, efforts to mediate peace between Israel and Palestine have faltered, with both sides blaming each other for the ongoing violence. The lack of trust and the deep-seated grievances on both sides seem insurmountable. As the world looks on, it becomes evident that resolving this issue requires more than just diplomatic statements. It requires bold action and, most importantly, a willingness from both sides to put the needs of their people above political power struggles. Gaza's future. The question remains, what is next for Gaza? Can peace ever be achieved? Or is the region doomed to repeat this tragic cycle of violence? The damage done by these latest airstrikes is not just physical. It is psychological. The trauma of war, especially for children and vulnerable populations, will last for generations to come. The devastation of this attack, coupled with the long-standing blockade and political instability, means that rebuilding will not be an easy task. Gaza's future hinges on the international community's response, and whether it will be enough to force both sides to reconsider their approach. While peace talks have failed before, the hope remains that a new approach might be able to break the cycle. Conclusion. As the world turns its gaze toward Gaza, the situation remains critical. Over 80 people have died, countless more are injured, and thousands are left homeless. The humanitarian disaster continues to unfold, and the political impasse leaves little hope for an immediate resolution. In these challenging times, the international community must push for a peaceful solution and work together to prevent further loss of life. This tragedy, set against the backdrop of one of the holiest times of the year, serves as a stark reminder of the cost of war and the fragile nature of peace. Gaza's people remain in the grip of uncertainty, waiting for a chance at peace, but hoping for a future that might be better than the one they endure now. The human impact of ongoing conflict. Beyond the immediate effects of the airstrikes, the long-term psychological and social toll on Gaza's people is profound. Thousands of families have lost loved ones, and many survivors face the challenge of coping with the trauma of living through such devastating violence. Children, in particular, are at risk of long-term emotional scars, having witnessed or been directly affected by the destruction around them. The health system, already under strain, now faces an even more daunting challenge, not just in terms of treating the injured but also in addressing the mental health crisis that looms large. The psychological impact is often invisible but deeply ingrained. The repeated cycles of violence in Gaza have normalized trauma for many, leaving individuals and communities trapped in a perpetual state of fear and uncertainty. Without access to proper psychological support, these scars will continue to hinder any long-term recovery efforts. A deeper look at the international response. As the death toll rises and more people are displaced, the international community has continued to call for peace. However, there remains a significant divide in the response. Countries like the United States, members of the European Union, and various international organizations have condemned the violence, but a solution seems increasingly elusive. Calls for ceasefires are met with resistance, and despite the global outcry, the military operations on both sides show little sign of slowing. Human rights organizations have been vocal in their criticism of the ongoing violence, calling it disproportionate and harmful to civilians. The United Nations has called for an immediate investigation into the violations of international law. However, the response from the region's governments has often been dismissive, viewing the calls for action as an interference in their sovereignty. At the heart of this crisis is a complex political issue that spans decades. The power struggles between Israel and Palestine, intertwined with regional and international politics, make any resolution even more difficult. We'll continue to monitor this evolving situation closely and provide you with updates as they happen. Stay tuned for more information. And thank you for following TVAI. See you next time.